Hello and welcome to another FPL video by me, the FPL D unit. You've come to the right spot if you're after some quality advice. I'm now ranked at 116,052 for the season after I played my wildcard in game week 12. And I can tell you that my wildcard draft this week is very similar to what I created in game week 12 because there's not much that I'm not unhappy with moving forward into game week 13. And I think that this draft is actually very different because I did make this on the deadline day stream and it was different to all the other drafts that I'd come up with. And I think that I really like the way that I designed it, but there are a couple of tweaks I would make for this particular game week moving forward. And that's something that you need to be aware of probably for your own teams if you are wildcarding in game week 13, which isn't the most popular time to do it, but it is something that, you probably can be aware of moving forward. So without further ado, let's get into my thoughts behind a wildcard draft for game week 13. So Haaland, I think at this point, cannot be in a wildcard draft. He is costing too much money. He's not worth the price of admission. And I think that you've just got to have better options moving forward. And I just can't see a reason behind having him in your team. He's just no good as far as I'm concerned. He's not outputting, and to make it worthwhile, he's got to be scoring almost like over 10 points a game. And I just can't see him doing it at the moment. So for me, you've got to keep him out of your team, particularly if you're wildcarding. You've got to be aware of the Brighton, Arsenal, Chelsea fixture runs, which are still ongoing, and they've been ongoing since last week in game week 13. Newcastle, I would say, is also in that point as well, but you really want them for game week 15 onwards, but you would need to be aware of them. And Bournemouth are also a team you should probably be trying to target with some of your moves. It's a watch and wait on Manchester United players under Ruben Amorim. I'm not convinced that I think we're going to see some experimentation from him moving forward, and it's something to be aware of, particularly when you're picking your team. Budget forwards are so crucial to your team, and there are so many to pick from, and they've been all delivering. So on the week we had João Pedro's 12 points. We had Cunha's 16 points, which are insane. Obviously, Strand Larson got an assist in there as well. And lots of other players were getting returns. Ollie Watkins got returns. Nicholas Jackson, who I had in my team, got 12 points. Isaac, unfortunately, blank. So these are all players that you've got to come in. That's why not going with Haaland makes so much sense, is because of these players in particular. So you've just got to be aware of them and work out what is your best combination. Now, lastly, drafts come down to personal preference and team value. You can't have everyone. It's not possible. As much as we would like every player, you can't have them all. And working out whether defense is worth the asking price is going to determine how your draft looks or how your team looks. And with that being said, let's get into what the fixture difficulty rating is saying for this game week. So in here we can see that Arsenal are in that amazing run of fixtures. Aston Villa have a fairly good run over the next 3 weeks after the Chelsea game. But again, I think they're just looking a little tired. Bournemouth, as I said, they've got a great fixture run there, other than Tottenham at home next week. But Tottenham, we just never know with them, so they could be anything. Brighton have got Southampton at home. So if you're going to double up and triple up on them, this is the game week to do it like I have last week. It didn't pay off for me last week, but I feel like it's going to pay off this week. Hopefully, touch wood, fingers crossed. Chelsea, again, they've got Villa at home, but they've got a pretty good run of fixtures and definitely a team you should be looking at. Ipswich as well. They are a potential option in here if you are chasing some absolute bargains. Liam Delap is definitely someone you should be aware of if you need a second cheap enabler along with João Pedro. He's someone you could definitely look at for the next 5 weeks. Leicester, they've got a new manager bounce. Is that going to impact? I'm not sure. So just keep that in mind. And then obviously West Ham are due to come into a really good fixture run next week. So if you're wildcarding this week, you could look at some of their assets moving forward into next week and getting them in a week early and bench them this week against Arsenal. And lastly, Wolves are in that amazing run of fixtures and their forwards are popping off, and hopefully the clean sheets will come as well, particularly if you are an owner of 8 Nori like I am. So moving on to the next little bit really quickly, and we're going to cover the players that have been really covered, being brought in. This is important if you're wildcarding and getting these players in before they do rise in price. Cunha is expected to go up to 7 million overnight tonight. So he probably is already at 7 million as this video comes out. So that is something you need to keep in mind. João Pedro is looking like he's going to rise as well. Saka has already risen. Mo Salah has already risen. And Pedro Porro, I'm not sure I'd be jumping on the Tottenham players. He's not going to be scoring every week. He's a player that I wouldn't be recommending in any wildcard draft, that Tottenham just don't keep clean sheets, and that's something you have to be honestly aware of. All right, obviously Haaland, Raul, Jimenez, Luis Diaz, Semenyo, Alexander-Arnold are all being heavily transferred out. If you've got any of those players in your team and you're not going to be keeping them, you probably want to get rid of them as soon as possible because they are likely to drop in price before the end of this game week. Now, onto the wildcard draft I made for game week 12. Now, this draft is perfectly fine for game week 13 and beyond as well. And I'll show you what it's lining up in at the end of this video, which is why I really like it. Now, I did have really high team value when I was on wildcard last week. I started the week with 103.9 million team value. It's now dropped because obviously I'd transferred a couple of players out that I did have money invested in to 103.4. But again, it is already going up in price. Saka and Salah have already risen since I did this, so that's looking good. And likely that some of the other players will rise as well. João Pedro will probably rise, and Nicholas Jackson and Isaac will probably rise in price as well. So look, these are players I'm excited about, but having my team long term. And I quite like the way I compose the team. Unfortunately, I do have a selection headache every week, and this week in particular, I have a selection headache because João Pedro will definitely be starting this week with Southampton at home. I just don't know which player I drop because they've all got fairly good fixtures. And you'd say the worst fixture of the lot is probably Mo Salah, but I'm definitely playing him because that dude has just been so consistent. So for me, that he's a no-brainer. And I do believe that the 3 premium midfielder draft at the moment is the template moving forward. I think Saka, Palmer and Salah are the 3 players you want to build the rest of your team around, and you try and then it just depends on whether you value defense. As I said before, if you don't value defense, and this is the route that I have decided to go down, then you come up with a draft that looks like this. I have spent my extra money on Nicholas Jackson and Isaac. I had Matheus Cunha in game week 11, and I sold him on wildcard for Nicholas Jackson. Now, that cost me 4 points. Long term, though, I think it's going to be worth the risk. Now, the reason why I say this is because Nicholas Jackson is going to miss a game in here somewhere. But the Chelsea run is super good up until probably game week 29, where it does get significantly harder from there on in. So up until game week 29, they've only got Aston Villa away, Aston Villa at home, Spurs away, and Man City away. Like, it's such a good run of fixtures. And I think that Nicholas Jackson, his expected goal volume has been so good that you've just got to have him. Even though I know he's probably likely to miss a game between now and game week 19. And everyone says he's potentially a risk of getting rotated against Southampton. I don't think so. I think he's more than capable of continuing that start. I don't expect him to be benched. But we'll see. I'm just hoping he doesn't get a yellow card this week. Ideally, he gets a yellow card against Southampton, scores a couple of goals and misses the Spurs away game. Actually, Spurs is not even that bad of a fixture, I don't think. I don't think it really should be a 4. Obviously, Matheus Cunha has been amazing, and there is a reason to have him in your team, and I wouldn't blame you if you went that way as well. He's definitely someone that's unfortunate that to be moved on to my team last week, and he did burn me. I mean, I probably wouldn't have started Jackson if I'd had Cunha, I think. I'm not sure. I don't even know what I would have done, because Isaac was always coming in, because game week 15, I just really like Isaac's run from Newcastle, and I think he'll be a good pick moving forward. But you could save the money there and spend it on your defence. I don't think there's any other midfielders I want. Or you could we'll get into what I've done in the midfield, the changes I would make to my wildcard draft from last week. And obviously Kirkes, Van Heck, Colwill, Hall, and Nate Norrie. The reason why I've gone with 5 different teams is because the defenders and goalkeepers have been so hard to predict clean sheets this season. So I think it's almost best to have 4 different teams represented in your defence every game week. You're always going to play a 3 at the back with the forward line I've created in this draft. I mean, I could have skimped out if you'd got lower team value. You could just go for some more budget defenders, or you could drop one of your midfielders down, or or your forward to Cunha, and you'd still be able to afford this draft quite easily. I definitely like this draft. There's a reason why I went with this over Haaland, and I'm so glad that I ended up going with that decision. Even though the Haaland draft I would have had Cunha and João Pedro, and I would have got 28 points from those 2 players. I didn't have Saka on that draft, so it was either Saka or Haaland, and I think Saka's going to be the better pick. And it also means I can invest more money in the forward line as well, and obviously afford a few more expensive midfield assets. I don't have any enablers in midfielder at all, and I just think that moving forward, that's probably the right play. But we'll have to wait and see. And then obviously some of the defenders, I was super unlucky this week. Chelsea and Brighton conceded such last-minute goals. I mean, Chelsea given away the penalty, and obviously Brighton went down to 10 men late in that game, which was frustrating because I think that's the main reason why they conceded as well, again in injury time. So that was disappointing. I just think moving forward, that's definitely the template that you want. So we're going to go into the alterations I would make if I was actually wildcarding game week 13. I am looking at rolling my transfers, which is why it's not really relevant. This is what I would do though. So I would change a few. I wouldn't actually bring Cunha in this draft. Now, as I said, the reason why, and I'll just quickly pull up Isaac's form as well. So he's got Crystal Palace away, and I don't expect him to blank like he did against West Ham. His XG was fine in that game. It's just he couldn't finish, and it was just one of those games that sometimes forwards have. But after the Liverpool game in game week 14, I just really want him in the team. I think he's going to score goals in there, and he's definitely someone I want. And if he's fit, he's going to be playing. And I really like his run up until game week 25. It's a lot better than the Wolves run. The Wolves run ends at about game week 18, and I don't think Cunha's going to continue that run of goals post game week 18. So this is more a longer term pick. But if you were willing to burn a couple of transfers moving forward, it's definitely something that you could look at, having Cunha and then changing to an Isaac, but then you have to find the money in order to do it. And it's quite a bit of money, like 1.5 mil. You have to move that around from somewhere else, or you keep it in bank and it's sort of going to waste. So look, that's what I prefer there. Now, the players that did move out of the team that I've got currently, Brian Mbeumo goes. And the reason why is because the Brentford run really changes after this week. So they've got Leicester at home this week, who have got the new manager bounce. And you could definitely go a week earlier if you're on wildcard and bring in a couple of different players. Now, I'd still triple up on Brighton, but in this draft, I also triple up on Arsenal. And obviously, I've still got the triple up on Chelsea. And I'm trying to really maximise those fixtures. Now, Matoma is a player that I really love. He featured in the differential video this week that I released yesterday. He's definitely someone that's worth a look and a shout, and he plays 90 minutes, and I think that's super important, and it's definitely someone you want in your team with Brighton's run of fixtures. He's going to get your points as long as he stays fit. He's going to be a great holder, probably until you can probably hold him all the way through to like game week 37. I just really like the Brighton run from here on in. They've played a lot of the hard teams already, and the others that they've got are really just spread out, and you can easily cover them for 1 week. He's a better option because then you can bring in Martin Odegaard as a double up in the Arsenal midfield. Now, everyone's talking about the double up Arsenal defence. I just think that there's so many good 4.5 billion options that you can sort of afford to be. And I think with Martin Odegaard back in the team, he's going to help Saka, and he's definitely going to be getting points as well, which was what we saw on the weekend. And he's now returned in back-to-back weeks since returning from injury. And with the Arsenal run coming up, he's definitely someone that I think has got a much better run of fixtures compared to Bruno Fernandes and Brian Mbeumo. However, I'm happy to have them this week, and I think Bruno Fernandes will be better long-term than Brian Mbeumo. I just think that Man United, they're in that sort of ground where we're waiting to see what happens, which is why none of the defenders are in here as well, because once I'm sure that how they're going to settle and Lenny Yori is fit, I actually think Lenny Yori will come into my team. But because you don't know how they're going to line up from week to week under Ruben Amorim, as he irons out the flaws in his early games in charge, I think it's hard to recommend having them if you are on wildcard. And that's me being a Man United fan, so that's hard to say. So Van Heck actually leaves here, so I still prefer Verbruggen in goal. I think Verbruggen in goal is just, he's really good. He does get the save points. He's not a bad keeper. He's nailed on, and you can rotate him with Fabianski if you want. If you think they've got a better chance of keeping a clean sheet, it's neither here nor there. Fabianski's actually coming to a good run of form with clean sheets. And West Ham, I think, are starting to look a little bit better defensively. But during Timber, I really like him. Again, the Arsenal run's amazing, and he's now nailed on in that team. If he's fit, he's playing because Ben White's out for a couple of months. And, it's pretty much means that he's locked in. Tommy Asu's out as well, injured. So I don't think there's anything to worry about there. And it's a cheaper route into the Arsenal defence. It's either him or Raya. But then I just feel like Timber would then become Van Heck, like in my lineup, and Verbruggen would become Raya. But you can afford that either way. This draft does leave you with 0.3 million in the bank as well. I do think that if Aït-Nouri picked up a yellow card as well, I think I would change him once I've worked out what a Man United defender looks like. I think I might get a Man United defender in there. Or, I don't know. Let me know in the comments what you would do if you were on wildcard. If you are on wildcard this week, what What kind of draft are you going for? Are you going with a Haaland draft? Are you bucking the trend and backing him in to return to some form? Or are you going like this? Or would you go an extra cheapered forward in order to bring in more premium defenders? Let me know in the comments, and please like the video. And if you're new and you've enjoyed this and it's hopefully helping you out for Game Week 13, please press the subscribe button as well. That's been my wildcard draft for Game Week 13. Join me tomorrow for transfer tips, and lastly on Friday for a deadline day stream and my team selection video and final thoughts. Thanks for watching. That's been the D Unit.